Okay.
Too many, sorry.
I'll do that when when we're ready. Or are you ready now?
Oh, yeah, no, I feel like it's in my
One
face.
of each.
Yeah.
I just wait.
So kind of everybody gets.
For
a little
Desiree.
bit.
If you can just pass this all the way down, you don't need to take one yet.
Oh, I don't need to
No.
take
No, yeah. Keep passing. No, keep. Oh, yeah.
They're
Which is mine?
we don't take one?
no, because I'm gonna, these are
You
some,
already
so
have.
each,
Get the last one.
nope, just,
No.
they're just, this is a packet together.
So keep two.
So you just keep them together.
Got it.
No, that looks like that's a pack. That's it.
Yeah, keep passing them down until you get yours.
Each packet. Nope.
Just keep passing them down.
Oh, I
Yeah,
think
keep
that's-
passing them out. That's
Okay.
Here we go. Here we go.
It's okay.
The next one's yours. Oh, this is the, okay.
Thank you.
And then y'all, yeah,
Everyone has one?
I think I. Oh. It was confusing in my phone, I'm sorry.
I don't know. We just got it. I don't know.
I thought I made more copies.
You need?
Everybody, is there an extra copy around? No? Perfect. Okay.
Extra one of these.
Do you need one?
What in the world?
I got it.
Because I have, okay.
Yeah.
If it's on the computer,
No,
I have it
it's
too.
not in the packet.
Okay. Oh, right.
Okay, I'd like to call to order and acknowledge, I'd like to call to order the Accommodations, Tax and Advisory Committee meeting today, Thursday, November 17. In call to order and acknowledge that the press and the public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. First item of business is approval of previous meetings minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second? I second.
I had
Any discussion concerning changes or modifications to the minutes?
I had a question. This is more for Nicole than anybody else. And anybody hadn't gotten it. Out of respect for the, members
Mr.
of the-
Treslow, do you mind speaking into the microphone?
Can you hear me?
You have to speak directly into it.
There you go.
How's that?
There's better.
Is that better? Ray's
You have to
is much
stay-
better
no,
than
you have
mine.
to stay- You have to stay
There's a,
forward on it. You can't turn your head as you've been doing.
I think is it not on?
Yes, it is, but I'm
All
just
right.
saying you have to stay at forward on
Out of
it.
respect for my fellow members on the committee and for efficiency, I had submitted my comments in writing.
You did, and I failed to give them to the city administrator.
Or
They'll be
I don't
on the
know.
website today.
All right, they're part of it. So they would be a part of the minutes.
Yes, I'll put them on the
All right.
website today.
okay, any discussion concerning changes or modifications to the minutes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next item is the review of the financial statements, and we'll have that review with Finance Director Debbie Suggs.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm going to start with the distribution of funds received. We did receive the first quarterly payment from the state for the fiscal year. The total received was $1,471,000, which was an 11% increase over the same quarter last year. So we had an outstanding FY '22, and I'm hearing myself though. And at least in this quarter, we've even built upon that. So that was good news I wanted to point out right off the bat. Now moving on to the financial statements, the balance sheet. As of October 31st, there is a little over $4 million in cash, $443,000 in accounts payable, for an ending fund balance of about $3.6 million. That $3.6 million represents primarily the 65% funds that this committee has purview over. So that's good to keep in mind. Revenues, this is the 65% portion of the total. No, I'm sorry. This is the 65 and the 30% portion of the total that was received. and about $20,000 worth of interest year-to-date. Moving on to expenditures. So we're 4 months into the city's fiscal year. Year-to-date, we've spent about $30,000 on public restroom operations, $37,000 on garbage pickup in the front beach area and along the beach, about $700 for irrigation at the Breach Inlet sign, $25,000 to repair sidewalk or curbs in the front beach area. Moving on to page 2, the amount that the city paid to the CVB for that first quarter was $439,000. That's the 30%. Fourth of July fireworks for 2022. The amount for the fireworks show had been the same for many years, but I suspect due to inflation, Munnerlyn Pyrotechnics increased the cost of the show by $10,000 from what the city paid in 2019, which was the last time we had a fireworks show. So that increase pushed the total expense over the budget by $2,000. So it is our practice to identify those overages and ask for an up or down vote from the committee on that over budget amount, and then city council will opine as well. So we have 3 items that are over budget. Do we want to take them one at a time?
They're on a different section of the agenda, so I think we can take action at the end under new business.
Okay, great. So we'll keep going. $14,000, almost $15,000 for replacement of equipment at the rec playground. Next page, almost $23,000 for a new 22-foot holiday tree at Front Beach. So this is the pre-lighted, it has decorations on it. We'll all get to see it very shortly when the city lights the tree. It came in slightly over budget too, by $812. Moving on, next page, we purchased some equipment that will be added to a patrol SUV once that vehicle has been ordered, but due to the backlog from the auto manufacturer, we have yet to receive it, but we have the equipment ready to go. Police Department also purchased a low-speed vehicle, $18,036, which is $36 higher than budget. Fire Department replaced a jet ski, $15,000. Public Works replaced a pickup truck for $36,000. All these things are included in the budget. And then so far this year, the sponsorship for the Isle of Palms Chamber of Commerce was processed for $10,000, and the sponsorship of the Carolina Coast Surf Club for $1,000. So grand total expenditures so far for the first 4 months of the year is $680,520.
Okay.
Any questions?
No? Okay, then we'll move on. Next item on the agenda is item in old business, and that's the quarterly presentation from Charleston Area Visitors Bureau. And I welcome Lori Smith and Catherine Doherty as opposed to Chris Campbell.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
this one.
Thank you.
Oh, that didn't mean anything about y'all, it was
No.
for my eyes.
Beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Laurie, is this the same, this?
It is the
This is the
same.
same document?
Yes, sir.
One's larger.
This is the same document?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, good morning again. Thank you for having us back out. I'm Laurie Smith. Catherine Doherty is with me. Catherine is our Vice President of Marketing. So together, we hope to be able to answer any questions that you have for us today. Just a correction, what we have been asked to present today was actually a year-end report from fiscal year 21-22. So that is what we have for you here today. We are looking back, not forward. When we were together last month, we did the first quarter, what we've done in this new fiscal year. So our focus today will be on how we actually spent funds last fiscal year. So that's what we're here to do today, and we are pleased to be with you. When I looked back, I'll tell you, we've had so many presentations. We had to put in front of our team what is exactly that we're trying to accomplish from this report. And I went back to review the minutes just to keep us focused. And that is, we were looking to provide for you a detailed accounting of expenditures, essentially a profit and loss statement showing revenues, showing cost of goods sold, showing administrative, and getting to a bottom line. So that is what we have attempted to do here today. And so I'm gonna speak from the spreadsheet, and we intentionally blew it up. I know that this is a lot of information to absorb, and it's a lot of information that we've tried to pack into one spreadsheet. So you may go home today and realize that you have questions that you didn't think of today. Don't hesitate to reach out to me or to Catherine. I'm fully aware that what we're giving you is a lot of information. I'm going to talk from the numbers, and then Catherine has prepared a slideshow to go with the numbers that will show you some examples of what we've done over the course of last fiscal year. So just to kind of orient you to how we're going to work today. I want to orient you to the spreadsheet as well. So at the beginning, we've got the total revenues that we received from the City of Isle of Palms over the course of last fiscal year. Keep in mind that we are required by our auditor to report accommodations tax, to book it when we receive it. So our numbers are going to be a little off from what Debbie's numbers are because you all accrue your revenues back to the time period when it was earned. So you'll see that we had budgeted about $600,000 in accommodations tax from the City of Isle of Palms last fiscal year, and we actually booked $936,000, and you can see over what periods that was issued. Just further orientation of the spreadsheet before we get into the details on the expenditures is that what we've got in blue, you'll see, is what we budgeted for you all, the budget that came to this committee and was approved by City Council in March of this year. And then what we've got in green are the actual expenditures that we made. So those are, we're going to be focused on that blue Isle of Palms budgeted column and the Isle of Palms actual green column as we go. If there's a cell that is 0 or blank, it means that we didn't budget for it or we didn't do it. So we can address those as well. So let's get started. So let's see, Section 1 is the specific marketing that we had planned to do for Isle of Palms. And this is at 100% share to Isle of Palms. We had planned $52,500 in various expenditures, and we actually spent just under $118,000. And how we spent that is through various programs, AdWords, social media marketing, and exploreiop.com.
So we have several examples of our AdWords that drove traffic directly to the Isle of Palms page on CharlestonAreaBeaches.com. So you can see the creative is specific to Isle of Palms. It's not Charleston, it's not Charleston area beaches, it is Isle of Palms. And here are our numbers from Google Analytics that reflect the performance. And then these are paid social posts. So there's money behind these. And again, these are specific to Isle of Palms. And then you can also see the new ExploreIOP.com that was started at the end of last fiscal.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Just, could you define conversions for the group, please?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me the good questions today. These are ones that actually landed or clicked on the ad and then clicked over to the actual site.
So a click there.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
not a conversion. Okay, thank you.
Oops.
Okay, thank you. So now we'll move into the next section, which are expenditures that we had planned on your behalf along with 2 other island communities. So these expenditures are at a third share overall, which is why you'll see that 33%. And we had planned $16,715 between the Coast is Clean campaign and key data research, which is the information that you all have begun to receive specific to short-term rentals on the islands. And we actually spent just under $20,000, $19,700.
So here's part of the key data research, the top level from last fiscal year that y'all would have already received. So just a snapshot of that report. And then the Coast is Clean and some of our paid efforts behind supporting that campaign.
Okay, now we'll move into paid print placements. So your share in these placements totals 34%, and how we get to that number was generated through a formula of rooms, and that is the share of rooms or the lodging that Isle of Palms has in relation to all of the area islands and beaches, and your share of that is 34.23%, so that's how we got to that number. And what Catherine is going to flip through various print examples that you can see here. And what we've done is there we go, my totals are on the wrong page. We had planned $565,000 in expenditures on behalf of the Islands campaign, and we actually spent just under $719,000.
So these are just some of our major media partners overall. Our programming is not all print with each of these titles, but these are top level where Isle of Palms was specifically mentioned along with our other beaches.
Just to point out here, we did add another column that shows what you call rack rate. So if you're not buying through an ad agency or through an entity like us that is able to get those lower rates, you can see and I'm sorry, I should have numbered these, but I'm at the top of page 3. It's giving me us a total. The $2.1 million is actually what the Bureau spent on these ads. Collectively, what the rack rate would have been $5.8 million. So just to clarify what that column is representing there.
No.
Mine didn't work either.
No, not yet.
I think maybe I'm done.
Mine wasn't working either. I think it is now.
How about now? Oh,
Yes.
There we go. All right.
Is there a question?
I think
well, and I'm not sure I'm there yet either. Are we still on print, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So, our allocation to you about $1 million or so, if we were to have spent it just on one ad or ad placement, you know, what would that have bought us? Catherine?
Well, I mean,
You know, like maybe,
that-
like maybe one ad in.
Well, you can see that under
Yeah.
the third column that says rack rate. So depending
Right.
on which one of these you were interested
So we
in.
could have been in Home and Gardens like just 3 times, which is.
Yes, and that would have probably
And that would have
been
been it.
Correct.
Great, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now we're going to move to the paid digital efforts. Again, this is specific to the islands and the beaches, so your share here is 34%. We had planned to spend, actually, we only planned about $1,300, but we had a lot of additions to the budget. We added as the year went on. I didn't touch it, I promise.
I think he just went back.
She's got batteries.
She what?
She has batteries.
I've got 3 of them.
She handed them out. I think she came down and handed them individually, so
Okay.
you just have the extras.
Okay. I don't see asking any questions if we don't have any. I'd like to know what the travel and entertainment expense is, but didn't
Not gonna happen.
advanceable today, does it?
All right, there we go. So we actually spent $281,000 in this arena, and Kat will elaborate on the exciting programs that we had that through our streaming platform.
So actually, we're going to start with Google AdWords. This was direct traffic to charlestonareabeaches.com, to the homepage, and then going into our streaming and broadcast. So through Sinclair Media, we have twofold program, not just TV. We also have these display ads that are on the websites for the broadcast stations that they own across the country. So just like they own ABC News 4 here in Charleston, they own other stations like South Bend, Indiana, if you happen to be like me and went to the not-so-great football game last weekend. So these would have been across the country on those sites. And you can see over 1 million impressions and 23 DMAs. Oops. And then this would represent our actual streaming 30-second commercials. The great thing about buying streaming versus traditional broadcast commercials is that it tracks through a home IP address. So we get the same kind of reports like Google AdWords and Google Analytics. We're able to pick people's lifestyles and geo-target them, and then we actually know when someone sees our ad versus traditional broadcast. Someone might go to the kitchen to check to see if the oven's preheated. You don't know if they finished the ad or what, but with buying our advertising this way on TV, we're much more knowledgeable about our viewers. And then, not sure if many of y'all knew, but we were the presenting sponsor of the Beach Reach program with ABC News 4. This was the program that ran all summer, directing residents and visitors alike on traffic needs going out to our islands. And I know Desiree and the mayor have already had a wrap-up meeting with the ABC News 4 team, and we were very happy to present this program and have some even bigger components in store with them for next summer. So we are committed to seeing this through. Yeah, that's all right. And then addition to our print partners, just the print advertising, we have several other web-based digital programs with them. This is an example of Bridal Guide, which is print component and digital, and then Afar, and both of these have Isle of Palms and beach mentions in them. And, ooh. So then we also have social media, and these are examples of paid posts on our feeds and the click-throughs and where these were clicking through was to charlestonareabeaches.com. The light blue would have been the prior fiscal year, and then the dark blue would have been last fiscal year. So you can see quite a bit of growth in our paid space. Digital marketing performs very well, especially for beaches.
So just, Kat, if you'll go back for 1 second, just to tie that back to where you see where we are on the spreadsheet. We're on page 3, about halfway down. On the far left, it says website. The cost to the Bureau for this site was $48,000. So your share of the beach's website was $16,000. I know the websites, we have many websites that we keep talking about, so just want to point out this is different from exploreiop.com. This is the Charleston Area Beaches website that you have a share in. So now we're going to move into group sales, and this is where we're looking to bring group business to the island, and we do this through trade shows and various events across the country, and our sales team hits the road to do that. So we have your share at 24% on those shows that we go to that target luxury properties. We have budgeted to spend $39,516. I'm now at the top of page 4. And we actually spent, on your behalf, $26,468. And then other trade shows that we attend that may not have a luxury focus, we had planned another $8,300 there, and we actually spent $4,500 in that on those efforts.
So over the years, prior to the pandemic, a lot of travel, whether it's associations, meetings, different shows, have transitioned to an appointment style. We like this much better because we have records of who we're meeting with, and it's a more surefire way to know that we're actually meeting with planners that have an interest in our area. It's not just standing there and crossing your fingers that somebody interesting will walk up. These are set appointment shows. So out of the 18 shows we went to, we had almost 900 individual planners that we met with at these shows.
All right, now we're going to move into regional marketing. So this is Isle of Palm's a share of your accommodations tax dollars spent in the direction of promoting the region. And we didn't budget anything in this area at the beginning of the fiscal, or for last fiscal year, but we've allocated $265,000 in this direction. And that includes several things, in our website, various publications, other research programs that we are involved with. Everything that we do is backed by research, so key data is only a piece of our research equation, and then a piece towards marketing and public relations as well.
So our overall explorecharleston.com is our main response site for a big part of what we do, but not everything. And you can see year-over-year performance. Again, last fiscal year was in dark blue, and the previous period is in light blue. So we had a really nice uptick in interest in people visiting our site. And then starting with our in-house publications, this is the Charleston Area Visitor Guide. So in addition to any of your businesses that are out here and have their own listings, we have editorial around the island itself, so you can see that. And again, this was last fiscal year's publication. Our wedding guide, and then our destination planning guide, which is for meeting planners. We also have several examples of our list of earned media placement. So this would be the free stuff. So this is an example from Southern Living where Isle of Palms was mentioned. And then our organic social marketing, social media for last year. So this would not have any paid boosts behind it. These are 10 posts that were very specific to Isle of Palms. So if you're on Instagram or you're on Facebook, the location of the town of Isle of Palms is tagged, and there's not mention of others. So 10 posts, we had over 1 million reach and over almost 45,000 folks with total engagements. And then these are just scrolling through examples of Instagram would be on the mobile phone icon, and then the desktop would show some Facebook posts.
So on the very last page, I added this information at, having heard some input from prior meetings, just to show you all a more complete picture of our expenditures. We spent another $7.9 million in accommodations tax eligible expenditures that we didn't apply against Isle of Palms. Those things may include other advertising efforts. It includes running our visitor centers, and I had heard from you all that that wasn't something you necessarily, I won't say that you didn't see value in it, but maybe not as much value as some of the other programs that we included, like the visitor guide and the website. So anyway, just to show you all, we're spending another $7.9 million in accommodations tax eligible expenditures. We have a grant that we received from the state. We're doing another we spent another $7.9 million on just grant advertising that benefited the island as well. And then we spent another $3.2 million that was more benefited our membership, our industry, and those are air service initiatives, workforce development initiatives, those kinds of things. So our budget last year was just under $25 million. I have shared our audit that was completed in October with the chairman as well as with the staff. And Kat, although we did a recap of the last quarter at the last meeting, Catherine has a few additional items that we wanted to show you all just to get you up to speed through November.
Thank you. All right. Well, last time that Laurie and Chris were here, they showed you a new video that we put some money behind on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, and you can see the performance as of this week. So again, that's paid boost. We also took the basis of that video and have updated it, and so I've got a new version to show you. One thing I do want to say is we are well aware that Ben & Jerry's is not open. You will not see the sign, but you will see some lovely young ladies enjoying ice cream. It does not say Ben & Jerry's, but I didn't want y'all to think that we were just severely out of touch and didn't know that. So if it is a real pain point for anyone, we can certainly look into addressing that in the coming months and getting that a little bit more refined.
Isle of Palms, South Carolina. The lifestyle here? Sand, surf, sun, heat. Plenty of ways to heat things up with a little healthy competition. Or cool off with a sweet treat. Here we like sandy feet, cold drinks, and waterfront everything. Explore Isle of Palms. Explore Charleston.
So hopefully there was not too much offense taken from the ladies enjoying ice cream. But if that's a pain point, we can certainly look at that going forward. Let's see. Okay, so Laurie and I were batting some things around and had met with Ray. And we said, are there other destinations on VRBO? We certainly understand that a larger percentage of your revenue is coming from short-term rentals, unlike in the past. So we got on VRBO, and we did see some states that were doing marketing within the VRBO platform. I have reached out to them. I heard back from a great person named Jessica yesterday, and we've got dialogue going. So what we internally believe one of the best things we can do, Isle of Palms specific, not for any other beaches, but for you all, is to do an in-platform campaign. This is one of their options where we would have a higher search rateability for Isle of Palms and drive into an Isle of Palms landing page within VRBO. So it would keep the consumer in the platform, ready to click, book it now for any of the listings on Isle of Palms. So hopefully that's something that's of interest of y'all. I just want to reiterate, this would not take them out of the platform. They would not be coming to our website at all. They would stay within VRBO and hopefully go ahead and click and book that vacation right here on the island.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Question about that? Oh, just so I understand the process. So somebody goes on VRBO, and they're interested in a search of Isle of Palms. They click that search button, and That's where they go?
Yes. And I also think, Ray, I've only started the conversation with her. This is from the first general packet that we received. I have now given her some more parameters and am waiting for her to build the proposal. But I also think that we can buy key search terms within there. So if someone searched South Carolina beaches or Atlantic beaches, I think, I don't want to guarantee it, that we can also buy into the search parameters as well.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be if someone just said Isle of Palms, maybe they search Charleston beaches or Charleston, and this would hopefully come up. But I look forward to reporting more back on y'all. But definitely hope that y'all feel like that is a benefit to this community. And then, really excited. Thank you, Desiree, for helping us. These are snapshots of part of the Christmas decor we did last year, specific to the peninsula. We have now purchased more of these 8-foot signs, and next Tuesday, there will be one going up right here in Isle of Palms, and we are really excited. And we have a whole social media campaign around this, a holiday campaign, our Christmas in Charleston website. So this, we call it Spread the Joy. As you can see, we have our hashtag that we started last year, and we look forward to y'all being one of our new locations and hope that a little bit more foot traffic will come during the quiet months of December. So thank y'all. And again, Desiree, thank you. I don't know a lot about voltage.
Me neither.
And then Laurie?
Sure. We're excited. I hear that we've had several applications for the new tourism position or the new public relations position that will be starting out here pretty soon. So I've enjoyed working with the staff on getting that in place. And I think specific to the VRBO, you know, we had heard from you all, what are you doing for our short-term rentals? And so we're really looking to answer that question. So let's please keep the dialogue open. We've heard lots of great things from your chairman. We're open to hearing what it is that you'd like to see from us. And we'd be happy to take any questions.
I do have a quick question, just out of interest. Do you know what the average age of a viewer of TikTok versus Facebook versus Instagram?
Well, Chrissy, I could not give you a definite. I will say one of the reasons we have ventured into TikTok slowly is because we have definitely seen more moms on there. And one of the trends over the years of social media, as I have a 16-year-old, I know you have a daughter inside, is we moms follow our children and where they are on social. Because Laurie also has 2 daughters. We want to know what they're doing. We want to be seeing where things are. So we are definitely seeing a higher age and skewing more from that 25-year-old that was just doing the dances to more consumer focused. I can tell you, after meeting with them several times, that one of their largest hashtags that is followed is luxury travel. They have over 3 million viewers that follow that hashtag alone. So that also was a driver for us.
Yeah, I don't know anything about TikTok. I try. But it was just interesting when you had that slide up
Yeah, I
with
can go back
the
to it.
viewership, the amount of people that were on Facebook, the reach
Yes.
on Facebook versus TikTok versus Instagram, which I think will tell Isle of Palms a lot about who's searching out
Sure.
Isle of Palms and how we can do a little bit more direct target marketing toward that age group.
We definitely get more click-throughs from Facebook and Instagram stories. I do know that. There are some shortfalls on TikTok.
Oh, I know.
That I'm
we
not
use
really
it
happy
at the
with is-
restaurant. I don't understand it, but they.
Well, your
we
stuff
love the
looks
staff.
great. But as a business, there's certain things that would have caused me to share with our team to really continue focusing on Facebook and Instagram, because that's where our good traffic is coming from. But I hate to not be a part of the conversation on TikTok.
No, I firmly believe
Yeah.
that we need to be across all 3 platforms. But it was just interesting to me to see that. But I'm glad to see that Isle of Palms is getting a presence on TikTok.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Just one question. So on the digital strategy,
Chaz, if you don't mind,
Oh,
if
sorry,
ever,
sorry.
yes, please
Regarding-
speak into
sorry,
the
sorry,
mic.
sorry. Regarding the digital strategy, we've got a lot of placement in paid media as it relates to print. And we all know that subscriptions in the print business has declined, with the vast majority of revenue that these companies are having are from online advertising. Why is it that we don't have paid media on these sites where we're also doing print across the board?
Well, we can always alter that going forward. We do have other programs in place, whether up until this fiscal year, a lot of them have been travel advisor focused. As we go to some of these travel shows that we have mentioned, we do partnership events with Condé Nast, with Travel and Leisure. We do some other sponsorship things with Afar and Garden and Gun. So we have chosen to work more with travel advisors because we know that generates a booking when we have those relationships. Is it possible that we could do more on their digital sites? Absolutely. This year, we are tracking our ads with QR codes through visitor guide orders, and we've been happy with what we've seen so far. So I know that a lot of people don't have as much trust in print as they once did, and I certainly agree with your observations. But that's where our focus has been in our partnerships with them. Now, this year, we have a brand-new partnership with New Yorker. We've never worked with them before, and we had a print component, but also a full digital component that I look forward to presenting y'all with. But they did custom cartoons. One is an Isle of Palms cartoon. That's what New Yorker's known for, and it's been all over social. So we're moving in that direction.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that was tip of the iceberg for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments?
I had a question. And this certainly isn't a criticism, but I'd asked for it before, and I'm very mindful of the asset side of what you do, but the other side of the ledger may be expenses. I noticed on your 990, there's no indication for travel and entertainment, or which just sort of kind of red flag, and it's, again, not criticism, but are you able to, can you provide us with the records of what the travel and entertainment is each year? And that's just to measure efficiency, transparency, and accountability. Again, it's not a criticism. I'm just want to make sure that not only are you doing the hard work, but looking at it from an efficiency point of view.
I hear you, and I understand where you're coming from, and I don't take it as a criticism at all. And I hope in return you won't take this as a criticism. That we've already gone above and beyond providing what we needed to, so we've provided what we're going to provide.
So the answer is no?
The answer is
No, regrettably, no. All right.
I hope we can be on the same page about.
Well, certainly want to be.
No, yes, sir. And I hope that, I mean, what we've provided today is far beyond what we've ever provided. So I'm hopeful that we're making strides. I hope that we've shown you that we're trying to make strides in that direction.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, Laurie and Catherine.
Thank you all.
Okay, next item is the review of the ATAX application guidelines. And I would think Desiree is going to lead that conversation.
Sure, I can provide some context. You're getting a copy just as a reminder of the discussion we had with the committee in August, at your August meeting, where we talked about a new application process, a new timeline. I just wanted to review that quickly with you all, make sure we're all on the same page. This was approved by the committee at that time. And the goal was to simplify and create some efficiencies in the process that you all receive applications for programs and sponsorships. And rather than doing that throughout the year, creating a consistent, well-advertised system for folks to come before you all and request funds. That process would start for the next budget, FY24 budget, which will start July 1st. of 2023. But we want to obviously get the applications first, give you all an opportunity to review them, have presentations made by those applicants, and then a recommendation made for all from the advisory board to city council for those that will be funded through the next budget cycle. So as you all know, you can see the application timeline. The advertisement of the request for applications would come out very soon, at 1st of December. Application deadline would be the end of January of next year. You all would be meeting for presentations on February 14th. You all meet a few weeks later after the presentations are done to make recommendations on those applications in March, and making recommendations to City Council by the end of March. And that fits well within the schedule that we have internally with Council with our budget process. So to that end, we talked a little bit about last month, or the last meeting that we had with you all, about whether or not there was any interest from the committee to streamline and simplify the application process. You have in front of you two examples. So there's the current application that we've been using and the proposed application that would be online. I haven't heard from anybody since our last meeting, any questions about the application. I want to give you all the opportunity to react to that. And are there any questions or any information that's in the current application that you would like to keep incorporated in a potential new application, or you want to keep the existing application? I just want to be a resource and give you all an opportunity to potentially streamline and simplify as we're going through a new application process, like we discussed a couple of months ago. So happy to take any comments, any feedback, and what the will of the group would be.
Okay, since this is the first time we've seen this, the new application, and the timeline would require sending out the request for applications on December 1. Can you give us a couple of weeks or a week and a half or some time to, I'd like to go from one to the other to answer your question.
Sure. So the application that you have in front of you, that was included in the packet. I mean, just a one pager with the same questions, the same information. The only thing that's changed is the format. That's the format that would look like on the website. So we took the one pager application guidelines that was in the packet at your October meeting, changed the format to what the online version would look like, and that's what you have in front of you. But certainly we can have another few more weeks, whatever is good for the group to review and provide feedback.
Well, I still would like to stay with the timeline, so I would just request a week. I mean, because what is it today, the 17th? So
Yes.
we don't have 2 weeks. So at least give us a week to do our review, give you feedback on our thoughts, and then with the intention of having it ready to go out for the 1st of December.
So does the committee want to meet the week after Thanksgiving?
I was thinking that we would just send you our comments individually.
That would work.
Do we have to vote on this? Should we vote on it as is and then with the caveat that changes could be made? I mean, when do we vote on it? Do we have to vote on it?
You can certainly vote on it today if,
Is a vote on it necessary?
I don't know.
No, okay.
No, I just want to make sure that you're satisfied with the kind of information you're asking of applicants, the information you'll be reviewing prior to an interview presentation.
Right, and I'm just asking for the time to compare the two and give you feedback with the idea that it can be put in place by the 1st of December.
That would work.
Anybody else have any thoughts or comments? No? Okay, that's what we'll do. And if
Okay.
you don't hear from anybody, that means they have nothing to say.
That's right.
Okay. Okay, next item, we go to new business. The first item is the consideration of the ATAX grant application from the LENS program for $10,000. And I believe Ted Kinghorn is going to give that presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, good morning. Tony Jones, who's one of our team members, submitted the application. He's unavailable, and I'm happy to be here on his behalf. For those new members of the committee, a little bit of background regarding the LENS program. There was a private individual on the island that approached the mayor and the chief of police about a year ago and expressed an interest to do something to support the police department specifically. And the chief, as I understand it, had a dialogue with the mayor and this individual that there were occasions where there were special needs for a visitor, an individual, people within the force, and that some program like this would be beneficial. He also indicated that the police department didn't have at the time a way to receive funds if somebody wanted to donate funds to the department. And so the first option is you look at, well, we create a not-for-profit. And rather than do that, I think because of the long history of the Exchange Club on the island and the confidence in the Exchange Club, they approached us and asked if we would consider managing such an enterprise. And the Exchange Club agreed to do that as part of their Community Service Committee enterprise. So within, realistically, the last 8 months, an organization has been stood up. It has been funded. Your committee and those of you that were on the committee at the time really out of whole cloth supported this initiative. There wasn't any precedent for it. It hadn't been done before on the island. We as volunteers, and it's a volunteer-based charity, a 501c3, committed to implementing the program. I have a chart over here which identifies 50 of what we call the founders, and these are individuals, businessmen, and not-for-profits, including the city, because of the ATAX committee's recommendation that helped stand up the initial activities of the LENS program. If you've not had an opportunity to view the website, which is identified on the screen, I'd suggest that you do that. We have had nothing but comments, positive comments, with regards to our efforts, the tasks, the programs, the funding we've done. And one keystone item, if you will, that we came out with was a banquet, which we'll do an annual banquet in conjunction with National Police Week to honor our police officers on the island, as well as use that as a fundraising event. We chose the Islander 71 restaurant. At the time of our choosing, it wasn't open. We all know a little bit of the history with regards to the difficulty of the building and opening the site and the business's commitment. But we made a pledge to do that. They made a pledge to make it happen. And it was an incredible effort by our volunteers, by their staff, and we put on a magnificent event. And I think I recall, and it's an accurate quote, at the time, the mayor who was in attendance noting that this was nothing but a positive experience. And as you all know in your service on the committee, we oftentimes on the island have challenges, and it's not always very positive. And I can tell you that my involvement in this program and support of it has been very rewarding. I'm honored to do it, and it has been nothing but positive. And so in that tone, I'm here asking that you consider making a similar request as was approved last year. We have identified for you approximately $5,000 in expenditures that we've allocated. I'm interested in your views of the areas in which we've allocated those. And we have other options. It does not include flyers. It doesn't include programs. It doesn't include a website, all of which, from what I've seen in past ATAX allocations, could be eligible. But we tried to make it where we felt it had an impact on individuals that, in many instances, work on the island, but are not residents, but come here and serve our citizens and guests alike. I'd be happy to take any questions.
I guess I'll start. I went back and watched the video of the meeting back in January, I think it was, January or February. There were a couple of questions made by the committee at that time, and one concern was the need to spend money on tourists specifically, and that come from a 50-mile radius. Has that been factored into your process or your decision-making?
I can tell you that the banquet that we held, it was attended by over 150 individuals, which we pushed the space over there a little bit. We thank you for that. There were individuals in attendance from outside the area. And, you know, a lot of our programs, and I really raised the question, and I ask you to help us as we judge what we've funded currently and what we might fund in the future. Are we looking at recruiting guests to the island, or are we looking at retention? And those are a different thing. A lot of what we do, a lot of what the finance director reported on earlier, are what I would describe as indirect elements that support the community. And because we have a family-friendly community with a safe environment, the number one priority of the government, right, to keep our citizens and guests alike safe, where we add value to that with every program that we do, I think supports not only those that we want to attract from whether they're 50 miles out or further, but that they have a good, safe experience, and so there's a retention element that they'll stay longer, they certainly will come back and they'll visit more frequently. So in that regard, yes, sir.
Okay. I specifically had asked, is there a mechanism in your organization to segregate ATAX funds from donations and other sources of income? Is that in place? And
yes, so we have a selection panel of 3 individuals, and I appreciate the oversight, the accountability that needs to be there, and our compliance responsibility. We have 3 individuals that when we receive an application or a request for funding, they make a determination on that funding. One of the advantages has been the ability to do it quickly. The best example I can give you, and I think this goes to a very important indirect, 24 hours a day, any day of the year, the police department can call up and get assistance. In this one instance, about 2 months ago, this summer, there was a domestic abuse case. And this woman was pregnant, had a 2-year-old. The individual that was accused of the abuse was carted off to jail, and they wanted to find safe harbor for this mom and her daughter. Lieutenant called me up.
Was this a resident of Isle of Palms?
No,
This was a visitor.
A visitor, yes.
Who was staying already on the island?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And he was able to contact me. I contacted my 2 other panelists. This is exactly a great example, which we hope would never have to fund, right? But we were able to make a decision, turn it around. I negotiated personally with hotels, and we found a hotel and paid for the hotel of this mom and her daughter who was pregnant. So we ask ourselves, what impact does that have? Now, I was thinking coming to this meeting this morning, and I've had some similar questions, and we've asked ourselves those questions. I've stayed many times on the island and have contributed to the ATAX funds. If you ask me or any other visitor, if my money could go towards, my little bit of ATAX money, could go to helping an individual, a visitor like that, or helping two other employees of the island, one of which we all know the story probably over at the grocery store. We were the first ones because of one of our exchange club leaders to find out that an individual was homeless. And before her shift ended, we provided funds, and we felt that was a good use of the ATAX funds. The other one was an individual whose child died, 11-year-old child died of an accident. Lives off the island, comes here, works, and supports our family, visitors, and guests of the island. And with a matching fund, we provided some funds for that individual. The fourth item I identified for you that we allocated to the ATAX funds was the support for National Night Out over at the Rec Center. A great activity, builds great morale. It's part of the fabric of the island, and we think these kinds of programs are very deserving. I look and I ask myself, and I'll ask you the question, as it relates to the larger issue, and I know you grapple with these matters. Turtles and teas, well, what does that mean? Well, several years ago, we requested of the committee that you support a program where there were some turtles identified throughout Front Beach, and when we have visitors come, children could find these turtles and play a little game. Well, does somebody come from Charlotte or Atlanta to Isle of Palms to find turtles? I don't think so. But we supported it.
I disagree with that, but
And it has merit. I think it maybe goes more to the retention. They're here on the island. Oh, this is exciting and fun. Let's do this. The children have a good time, and they come back and they visit our island, our businesses, and so forth. The T-shirts, as I understand it, or at least in the past, we maybe have provided some funds for the T-shirts as a giveaway. That's great. That's easy. How could we ever account how many heads in the beds that creates? But it's heartwarming, it's well received, and it builds the support that these things are very hard to judge. And no matter how many ads we do or websites, how many actual beds happen. Now, as long as the economy is growing and our accommodations are full, obviously the larger community is doing a good job.
just about the T-shirts, not to defend or not defend them, but it's a way of marketing to find out where people are coming from. When they come to pick up a T-shirt, they're giving us valuable information.
It has multiple uses.
Yeah.
But to say, is somebody coming from 50 miles outside? My point is, these things can be nebulous, but do we feel good about what we're doing, and are we implementing programs that we can stand behind? Now, having said all that, I welcome your feedback and through the administrator, and if you say, well, in your first 8 months of operation, you've spent half of the money for the programs I described to you, we think then feel more comfortable if you spent it on more banquets or if you spent it on your website, because your website's pretty professional, pretty attractive, and fund those things. And that's fine, we're happy to do that. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Kinghorn, when you first started your program, the ATAX committee recommended $2,500, correct?
I believe it was 5,000.
I think the minutes reflect that it was 2,500.
I thought council had doubled it, but
Yes, they did.
They did, but
but they funded 10.
They funded 10, which was the original request.
yes, the council, the town council so kindly gave, authorized or made a motion for you to have $10,000 instead of the $2,500. Am I correct on that?
Correct. The ATAX committee recommended 2,500. City council went ahead and approved the full 10,000.
Maybe our original request was for 5.
That's right.
Original request for 5.
That's right.
Obviously, this has helped you meet your goals, but I don't see that these goals have any direct, unless I'm new, so I don't see any direct effect for tourism, and that's what the ATAX committee is set up for. And I'm also assuming that you're keeping all the documentation of all the expenses that you incurred for the $10,000.
Of course.
Do we have it?
You do not have it. I've shared
Can
with
you,
you.
can you present that to the committee?
I won't say no, I'll plead the fifth, as my previous compatriot did here. No, we have that information.
Two separate issues.
We have to provide all our documentation, our accounting, our annual reporting to the Treasury Department, et cetera, et cetera. Now, in the three instances I gave you, they're individuals. And so, yes, I can tell you that we wrote a check for $1,000 to an individual. We have not used, you'll notice on the website, as well as public information, which we think these are really the important stories to tell about our community. We have not used those individual names out of respect for their privacy.
But what does this have to do with tourism? I mean, it is very kind to give out and help people in need, but is this the program? Is this what the LENS program is about, helping people in need, as opposed to direct connection and providing input for tourism to come into the Isle of Palms?
So the program is designed to assist and support the police department for morale-boosting activities. So if the police department, as one example, also hardship funding, and I gave you 3 examples of hardship funding. We've also provided hardship funding for members of the police department as well as the fire department. So what's the relationship to tourism? There's an individual, say ex-individual, and his spouse has died, her spouse has died, and they have 2 young children, and they need some assistance. And we're able to step in and provide a stopgap measure to help them. So they're not worried about that when they're in public works or the fire department or the police department. What service are they providing to our guests and residents? I think it's very positive and it's very powerful.
Does this promote tourism?
It promotes.
I can see you have a wonderful organization, but I cannot see where this actually draws more tourists into Isle of Palms.
And we can make the same case of what does a website do? And would you rather fund the website? What does infrastructure do? What does funding a brick or a patio do? What does funding the turtles realistically do? Other than you're supporting primarily individuals when they're here in an experience.
And just to clarify, when state law defines what tourism-related expenditures are, which is applied to the 65% of state ATAX funds by which we fund the $50,000 for these programs and sponsorships, tourism-related expenditures include the promotion and advertisement of tourism, but it also has another list of activities or initiatives that could be eligible for funding. The criminal justice system, law enforcement, fire protection, and some other additional ones which are in Section 4 of that of state law would apply. I'm not advocating.
So this would apply to ATAX funding, the taxpayers' money for this.
I'm just reciting what state law says, and state law, there's a section under tourism-related expenditures for law enforcement. So I think if the connection can be made that this program supports law enforcement, I think you can see it from that lens, which is, I think, the lens that was looked at last time they received ATAX funding.
And so we have the precedent of your support and council's support. You know, if there was a box of 16 things that we could fund with your generosity and the city being able to be identified as a leader of the founder of this program, that would make it much easier for us. It would make it much easier for you. But there's a lot of ambiguity with that. And so we're supporting things and will continue to, and certainly those that you want us to support. So I would encourage everyone, if you've not, I think you'll find the website very helpful. The Isle of Palms Police Department, first and foremost, is promoted with videos, with photos, with content. We have published just last week a State Farm safety feature for golf carts. We intend to hold both a bicycle safety program in conjunction with the city and a golf cart safety program. All of these things are beneficial to the community.
And you're going to provide the committee with a listing of all your expenditures and how they were, how
well-
the $10,000 of taxpayer money was.
Yes, I'd prefer to provide that to the administrator to maintain confidentiality and make sure that she has the accountability that she needs.
I think one of the key words that you used, Ted, was, for me anyway, was retention. You used that previously, and Barb and I were talking about this yesterday, is what do we want people to think of when they leave or tourists leave Isle of Palms, and what keeps them coming back? And I think when you use the word retention, to me, that kind of sparked something and said, well, you feel safe.
Sure.
Right, my daughter and I were looking for somewhere for spring break, and they're thinking Mexico, and we're going, doesn't feel safe.
Of course.
So, in order for tourists to come here and want to feel safe, I think that's important to.
Is that not their job anyway?
Well, it is.
Right. I mean, that's kind of what the job is.
So,
But it contributes to part of the vibe of Isle of Palms.
It absolutely does. Safety
wanna-
is number one.
To keep them coming back.
Can I ask a couple questions? So someone is in need, the police call you, and who are the other two people that make the decision to spend this money?
it's Tony Jones and Betsy Reidenbach, both members of the community and serve on the selection panel.
Okay.
Now-
And what's their qualification for doing this?
Well, let me tell you about
And yours, I suppose.
qualifications. Tony is a businessman. He has a foundation. Betsy is an educator. I won't go into a whole nother topic, but set up a whole nother scholarship program for our police department, of which we've allocated funds already. Let me give you additional capabilities, and if we could pull up the slide, who's ever controlling that, on our team, we have an advisory board that includes the former mayor, a former sheriff, a financial advisor, all of which reside on the island.
But they have nothing to do with this decision-making? to spend
Well, they're
this
the advisory board, so if we
But I
need
mean,
to.
we need this money because the woman needs a hotel
Yes,
tonight.
it's
This
the-
doesn't
it's-
go to. so
it's
it goes
three
to
of
the
us.
Three of you.
Yes.
Not the ex-mayor and.
No, but the advisory board gets reports and is
But that's after
integrated.
the fact. That's all done, right?
Well, no,
The event is.
they set goals and objectives and have regular dialogue.
Okay.
For instance, if we're going to do a golf cart safety program, what's the benefit of that? Is that something good? Yes. If I need something for law enforcement, I go to the former sheriff and educate me, I'm not a law enforcement person, on what we might do to help the police department. The point is, nothing is done by any one individual, if you will. There are always at least three or more individuals that see, identify things, improve, and the same goes for the financial responsibility that we have within the Isle of Palms Community Corporation.
So a question for Desiree. Out of this 65% where we're funding police cars and all this stuff, couldn't this kind of lens thing be taken out of that versus a special grant?
The special grant is funded by the same 65%.
Right, but we've a self-imposed limit on that, right, of 50,000.
Yes.
So,
There's no other line item in the current budget that additional, a sponsorship like this would come out of. It would be from the 50,000 that we currently have that you all oversee.
okay, and then once we do these grants every year, it's Turk, is that the name of the group? Looks at them and
Yes, ma'am.
says whether they're valid?
Yes, ma'am.
Have they given us an opinion on the last 10,000 that we got? Because to me, this doesn't seem like it falls under ATAX. It's a fantastic program, but great, I think I'm willing to put my tax dollars in it from the city budget. But ATAX is very specific by law what we can do with it, and this seems like a stretch.
They have not indicated.
Not indicated?
They have not.
Which means no indication isn't okay, or do they actually report?
They do verify and
Okay.
review all of the expenditures, and they do report.
And have they on this?
If they have a question about an expenditure, they do report back to us and to
Okay.
Debbie. They haven't on this expenditure.
Yet, or is it because it's so current, or is
Well,
is it a done deal?
the report was recently submitted for the end of the
Report,
fiscal year,
yeah.
our report.
Right.
So I'm not sure what the timeline is once they receive the report and
So
whether or not they
haven't
call us back.
weighed in on this yet?
They have not.
Okay.
All right, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm looking at something talking about like pass-through funds. And there's a provision, I'm just reading here, it says the number of grantees of City of Isle of Palms ATAX grant funding are not permitted to use such funds received to re-grant or pass through. And that just, it just kind of seems to me that's kind of what you're doing. You're taking our money and then you decide who you want to pass it on to.
So, as I indicated, if that was problematic, although we heard some references to there is some general categories of which funds can come to an organization such as ours, then you can direct us and we can be mindful to fund other things. For instance, these are decals that individuals on the island, you may have seen them prop up, show support for the police department. And notice it's law enforcement community support. It's law enforcement supporting the community, and conversely, based upon the financial donations from our donors on the island, the community supporting the police department. So again, where you have, clearly the record shows for years, funded websites and other things, we could fund the website, which is chock full of information of the island, for the island, and would be very desirable if somebody, for instance, is in not Monk's Corner, if they're in Raleigh and they put on, they're worried about safety, law enforcement Isle of Palms, chances are this is going to pop up. And you're going to have some independent validation of the community and the support that exists within the island.
One suggestion, that their application includes a budget, and there are some specific activities that are included in that budget. Would the committee feel, I guess, because of the concern about the pass-through, which is true, that's something that can be used for, $1,000 are included there for support for the police department's holiday event where awards are given to our law enforcement personnel. They also are suggesting including $2,000 for the National Night Out as a sponsorship. This is an event that our police department puts together every year to bring the community to meet our law enforcement personnel. So those are more specific events that benefit our police department directly. No, not a sponsorship that's given to somebody having a hardship, and there's clearly some questions about how that's tracked. Is that just a suggestion for the committee to discuss? Do you all feel better by supporting a specific event, a specific initiative from the LENS program that would fall under the law enforcement component of what a tourism-related expenditure would be? Just a thought.
So I'm looking at the budget, and what is the $3,500 for visitor promotion? Is that those things?
Yes. Now, again, the only items we've identified for the accommodations, we've funded 5 or 6 times more in non-accommodation funding. So some of that budget information, I think, reflects things that we have done, or, to Desiree's point, could do if you said, no, stay out of the hardship section and support other things direct for the police department. We're happy to do that. For instance, we're raising funds for another handicap wheelchair for the beach, which of course would be often used by visitors. We have also supported, that don't show up and aren't direct funds for us, where we've been funded by other organizations to support the police department in a separate activity.
I think I would like to see more of that, to come back with something related more towards truly spending your funds on visitor ideas and that I can kind of grasp onto.
Jerry? I don't know if you're aware from last meeting, we had a group come to us looking for support for actually putting heads in beds, renting a home on Isle of Palms for people who are dealing with cancer. And we did not fund that. We didn't feel that it was proper for ATAX. I shouldn't talk for everyone else because I did vote for it. But it isn't. It's not a direct what ATAX is for. Supporting the police is a given if you live on Isle of Palms for every citizen. I don't think we have people picketing the police department or ever arguing with the expenses. Years ago, we had a bit of a kerfuffle about a fire truck. But so.
Well, you've had over 100 donors in the last 8 months that have supported this program.
That's
so
great.
both the department recognizes there's a need. There are unique needs that aren't going to fall within a traditional budget, right? Some examples that I've given you. And the citizens have recognized that there's a need for both community engagement, both ways, between the community and the police department. And the hardship program and something we did not anticipate, the scholarship program, have been very well received by both the community of donors as well as the police department, and I believe the city and the council. So again, I think we should wrap up. I would be happy to continue the dialogue. You may not know, but for 30 years, I engaged in economic development for the state of South Carolina. And there's always a push between retention and recruitment. There's always, we're funding something and where does it go? Statewide, we're funding a program and the urban areas will ask, why do the industrial development always go to the Midlands, the upstate, and the Charleston area? There are reasons for that, right? But you try to support your existing businesses and economic development dollars that come from the Department of Commerce. What supports the homegrown businesses versus chasing the next best thing? And it's a challenge, and you have a challenge to assess these items. I appreciate the opportunity, the dialogue. Again, I've given you examples where we thought made sense, and the goodwill that's going to be earned by those I think are substantial. It is not, another unique element is it is not a one-event occurrence. We're open 365 days a year to support residents, visitors, and the police department. And that's ongoing. It can happen tomorrow, maybe 3 things, and maybe nothing for 2 weeks. But it's not, we blow in, have a race, have a walk, and then leave. So it's a bit of a different creature, and with just 8 months, we're proud of what the Exchange Club has helped stand up and your support, and if we can refine it and improve it, we welcome that opportunity. So if there are any other questions, thank you all.
Okay. Any questions?
I'm just wondering if we can put a caveat to this as what they were saying. If we know where the funding's going, can we, like you were saying, can we do that?
You can make a recommendation for a specific program that's included in that budget that you all feel meet the threshold of what state law ATAX accommodations funds would be eligible for.
Barb, I think you and I know better than most anyone that the city budget, and you've probably all learned, funds a lot of things that would be identified as indirect support for our critical services that obviously support all the guests that come to the island. And we know that's a growing number. I don't think, especially on the indirect, this is that much different. It's just more of a personal nature. But yes, if you said fund just the police direct, where they don't have something on the traditional budget, or if I understand like National Night Out, the city allocated $1,500 So we pledged to match that so we could improve the experience. We would be happy to allocate the funds to that or their annual holiday banquet. So, and then these hardship matters that I gave as example, we'll fund that with other funds.
I think it's almost just the opposite. The wheelchair, that obviously I can see as a tourist event. It's the thank you banquet for the police. I find hard to take out of ATAX money. Great event, but I just think it's the wrong bucket of money.
Like I said, I've given you examples of what we have done, and I welcome if you have suggestions or would have us direct things in a different area or want to offer additional programs or initiatives that you think it's appropriate for this group to run. Last comment on requests. Requests come in. Not only do they come to the selection panel, oftentimes the administrator has check off on that, as does the police chief, and requests oftentimes come through the police chief. So there are many elements in this request, not just 3 individuals on the outside looking in. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other comments or discussion?
If everybody's through, I would like to weigh in.
Go right ahead.
All right, I have tremendous respect for our Isle of Palms Police Department. I have tremendous respect for the Exchange Club and all the work they do. I have respect for the Lens Program, which is an arm. I hope everybody understands it's an arm or a pillar of the Exchange Club through a separate 501c3, so they can check off that box as a nonprofit or a charitable organization. My wife and I both contributed to Lens, both personally and financially. I don't doubt the good intentions of the Lens program. We went out on a limb recommending, because it was a new program and it sounded like they had some very laudatory goals, we went on a limb and recommended $2,500. We explained at the time that there were going to be 2 pots of money. There's ATAX money, and there's our private money, what people may give on their own.
Talking.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
All right. We have, so there are 2 funds of money. One has to be strictly accounted for. The other, if I give money away to any charity, they spend it, and I'm not questioning this. But for the ATAX portion, we've got to comply with the law very strictly. We've got to have proper accounting. We don't have it in this case clearly, and I'm going to explain why. I'm of the opinion that the Lens program should return the $10,000 that they've already gotten because it has not been spent properly. Here are some of the reasons that I have. Again, you have the ATAX component and the charitable component. I'm not going to talk about the charitable component, but you can't commingle the money. Just like a lawyer can't have a trust account and commingle the money and use one person's money for another purpose, you have to have separate ledgers. They have no ledgers. I've asked for them. I have the chain. I've asked for the documentation. We have nothing. For guidelines, this does not comply with the law. It very clearly doesn't. We can look at the 1998 Department of Revenue guidelines. It's guideline 9822. You can go to page 10 and you can see that this does not doesn't qualify under our guidelines. You can't do pass-throughs. You've got to account. Typically, we do things on a reimbursement basis rather than a trust on the front end, but if we do, we need to verify. These funds cannot be spent for scholarships. $2,000 of scholarships money was used for. Can't be used for child support. It's been used for child support. It can't be used for a jump cancel. It can't be used for Spoleto. It can't be used for an off-island family members' expenses, no matter how legitimate they were and heartfelt. You can't confiscate the taxpayers' money and then use it for somebody who's had cancer in the family, if they live off the island, if they work on the island but they've lost their job and become homeless. We can't use these funds for that purpose. No matter, we can't use it for medical bills. You can't spend it for an Isle of Palms Police Department party. All of these things that they've spent the public's money on, they can't do it. You can't, as Gloria mentioned, you can't have a pass-through. You can't have it for after-school tutoring. That, you cannot do that. That's aside from what's called the 50-mile rule. You can use your charitable funds, but, and I support that, but you can't use it, and and I think I probably said enough. However, these several other things are important. And I think the question was asked, but not only has the Department of Revenue indicated what can be done and can't be done with the money, but Turk, our oversight committee, our auditors, have indicated many, many times that this is not a proper expense. Why is this important? Because if we get caught, it's kind of like an IRS audit. You don't expect to get caught. They don't get many people, but if they come in and weigh in, not only do we get caught and have spent the money, we've got to pay it back, and we're subject to other onerous examinations. So it's just a bad, bad deal. On the, I could go further, but I've asked for the information, haven't gotten it. I'm sympathetic to the domestic abuse situation. That arguably could be something that things could be spent on, but I asked the police chief when we couldn't get any documentation on how the money had been spent. I asked the police chief for documentation, and there wasn't information that was forthcoming for tourism, for a tourist domestic abuse case. It wasn't there, and the money wasn't spent on the Isle of Palms. Hotel wasn't on the Isle of Palms. I'm seeing Ray wants me to wrap it up, so I will. Policy, it's a bad policy decision, and it should not be approved. The money should be returned to the Isle of Palms. If we don't get it back, we're facing some serious trouble.
Doug, Mr. Chairman, committee, I'd like to provide some clarification because there seems to be some confusion. Let me be just very, very clear, which I think the application was. We have identified in the funds that we received in just the last 6 months that we've had them, that we made an allocation of a restricted account. It's not intermingled with other funds from the 10,000 of 5,700. That included the 4 cases I gave you, and the 5th expenditure was for National Night Out. The scholarship fund is separate. The funds for everything else are separate and are well documented and have to be. As our filing with the Secretary of State, the oversight that we have within our committee structures. Every other fund is separated in a separate account and so allocated. So there's been 4 or 5 expenditures in the categories I gave you, and those are it. If in our initial experience together of 6 months and the city sponsorship, so they can show some leadership with the other individuals in the community that have chosen to be donors, would direct us that we fund in a different area as identified, some of which I think by the administrator that are appropriate, we are more than happy to do that and would want to do that you feel comfortable that it is in not only compliance, but the spirit of which you would intend the funds go towards. I mentioned the banquet that we held this year to support a business and support the marina, which has gone through a great change in the last several years. Next year's banquet is May 15th. It'll be in our resort. It will be well attended. It will draw people from much beyond 50 miles. What's the value of that? What's the value of the goodwill? So if you see there are areas that I've shared with you, or if you spend some time on the website and say, these are the spots, direct the administrator. It's not the police chief. We're an independent 501c3. I have the details and the information, and I'm happy to provide it to the administrator. More importantly, is direct us, if you will, and make our jobs easier where you think the funds would best be spent. And if you think we're not good compliance and having fiduciary responsibility of these funds, we do not want to be responsible for them. But the partnership together with the city's leadership, with your council, has been nothing but positive. Nothing but positive and so rewarding. And unlike any other program that I'm aware of on the island, I've reached out to all the churches on the island. They know there's a place, if there's a parishioner that has a problem, has a special need, here's a spot they can go. And throughout the community. So if the areas we've identified and have allocated aren't to your satisfaction, and you can share with us those that are, and perhaps a review with some of the guidelines you've been provided, we're happy to do that.
Okay, I don't think it's our role to tell you how to fashion your application that would maybe be viewed positively or not. That's entirely your responsibility, I feel. So I'm not in favor of this committee suggesting that the money shouldn't be used for housing for people that have hardship. But so I would suggest you consider tabling this application and resubmitting to the committee with, after you've gotten some feedback today about what, pretty much everybody on the committee has some thoughts about what is appropriate and what is not, that you resubmit. I would propose you resubmit an application that would pass the state law, basically.
Well, I think it does pass the state law. I think you've heard information this afternoon that's provided that. Perhaps the general counsel looks into it. But for the modest amount that we've partnered with you on versus all the other projects that the city does within their budget and directed with you, and how one is different from the other, I think that's your decision to make. And my suggestion is not to help us write a grant application, but to provide guidance if, in our brief experience, this you're not as comfortable with, give us the pots that you are. And if you can't, then maybe it's not a match, and council can choose to do what council would like to do.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Do I have a
Mr. Chair?
motion on the floor?
Oh,
I'm sorry,
no,
Barbara.
I agree with you, that resubmitting something that's relevant to tourism would be the best decision, but just
Any
my
other
2
thoughts?
cents.
So is there a motion on the floor?
Not?
No? Okay, and we'll move on to the next
Would-
item.
Do we want to, what's the status of this? He's made an application, he hasn't withdrawn it, he's.
I don't know, other
I don't-
than there's
I
no
call-
motion.
You don't have to take action. There's no motion necessary.
I call the question. I think we ought to vote on it. I think
There's
it's-
no
There's no
motion.
motion on the
There's no
floor
motion.
to vote on.
There's no motion to vote on.
I'll make a motion to reject the application. Why not?
You can make a motion to approve it, and then you guys can vote it down.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve.
Or you can do nothing. is
I can what?
Or you can do nothing, which is what the city administrator said. You don't have to take action.
I think we should. I think it's important when we find out where the money actually was spent, it needs to be returned. This is not acceptable. This is not a legal expenditure of the ATAX money. It's clear that it's not, and this is an important issue, and it needs to be dealt with in a public fashion. This is just, it's not acceptable. You can't spend the money as they spend it.
And that's okay, Mr. Truslow. I guess the guidance we're being asked for is whether there's a motion on the table. There is not. You can either take no action, which the committee has done in the past with applications that they've asked to come back to you all with some additional information or changes to the application. That's certainly a path, Mr. Chair. I think that was your question. Or you can make a motion to approve and reject it. It's the option is available to you all.
Well, he can withdraw the application and then come back with the documentation. That's one option, but hadn't done that. I asked him for the documentation, but,
So you either make a motion.
I'm making a motion,
And what is that?
relative to approval of the grant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Okay,
That's one thing.
Barb?
Obviously, a worthwhile program, not the issue. The issue is where the money's coming from. If the Exchange Club can come back and tell us that we're funding improvement of access to the beach or the wheelchair, things like that, that are directly relative to tourism and bringing tourists to the island, making tourists happy while they're here and they'll want to come back. But that's where I stand.
And I'd like to add, I think there's actually one more level above that, and that is the issue of pass-through. That seems to be the linchpin that is really having things fall apart. So there has to be some kind of mechanism where the money is specific and goes direct, as opposed to a middleman organization that then flows out, based on my reading of the statute. And I think there's definitely opportunities for you to do that in a different way.
I thought that the threshold question was accountability for how they spent the money last year before they're going to get money this year. If they didn't spend it properly last year, and like you said, Chaz, if they used it as a pass-through to give, pay somebody, a fire department or a police officer's child support, that's not acceptable. Medical bills not acceptable, and goes on.
Mr. Trestle, could you speak into the mic?
well,
We have a lot of people
okay.
listening on live stream.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Thank you.
So the threshold question is accountability. Before they can get money going forward, they have to show that they spent it properly last year. We went out on a limb last year, and I was very disappointed at the lack of transparency and accountability. I don't doubt that the money was well spent out of the charitable portion, but you can't spend the taxpayers' money with a pass-through or to give it to, if we're going to do that, the city's going to be bankrupt.
Mr. Chairman, may I offer a suggestion?
No.
Let me remove the application.
I'm sorry?
I'd like to remove the application in support of the next request you're going to receive.
He's withdrawing his application.
That makes, that's,
Okay, that's,
You can still, there's a motion on the table. You can withdraw the motion, withdraw the second, or you can.
I think I'm going to withdraw it. If he's withdrawing the application, then.
That's certainly possible.
Kovlich, you're fine with removing?
Still
your
have to
second?
deal with the $10,000.
Mr. Kovlich, Ms.,
Second.
who seconded it?
The withdrawal?
Yeah, no, she seconded the motion to approve, so I'm asking if you're
Yes.
approving, you're pulling your motion.
Yes.
Thank you.
removing the second. Okay,
All right.
Who's on first?
okay, so the motion is off the floor, off the table.
That's correct.
And Mr. Kinghorn has said he's pulling the application off the table as well.
In support of the next request you just received.
I don't know what that means, but,
Just, it means that I'm getting something out of your way, so you can conduct business.
okay. I don't think your application has nothing to do with the next application, other than you're in sequence.
Citizens support.
Okay, next item. Consideration of the ATAX grant application from the Exchange Club for $30,000 sponsorship for the seawall and sidewalk project. And,
Kitty Riley.
Kitty, yeah.
Hey, how are you doing?
good, how you doing?
Good. Hopefully I don't screw up the microphone. So first, I'd like to introduce myself, and I have a couple of associates with me. So I'm Kitty Riley. I'm a resident of Isle of Palms. I'm the current chairperson of the Isle of Palms Community Corporation, which is the foundation arm of the Exchange Club. I have here Robbie Berg, who's the president of the Exchange Club, current president. and then Pat Gillespie, who is the project lead for the work that we're doing with the bulkhead seawall for the Exchange Club. Pat is also on the board of directors of the Exchange Club as well, and he's a well-respected construction on the island as well as off in Mount Pleasant. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go through a couple things. One is what just confirm what the ask is, the description and need. Why should this apply to ATAX? Why should we be considered as part of ATAX? And then handle any questions and answers that you have. Related to the Exchange Club, I provided that in the application, but just to confirm, the focus of the Exchange Club is on Americanism, so veterans, support of our veterans, support of child abuse prevention, support of youth and scholarships, and then finally community service. And in our application, we identified some of the different events that we run, so I'll go through those in a minute. But what is our ask? The ask is for $30,000 towards a total cost of $228,000 to build out the seawall on the 201 Palm Boulevard, which is where the Exchange Club building is located. So far, we have raised $168,000, so I'll go through the finances separately. But that's the ask is $30,000. The description and the need for the project. The description of the project is that we're building a 244 linear foot seawall, also known as bulkhead. We're putting in a walkway, and we're also putting in a handrail. So to make not only to maintain the land, because in the last several years, so since 2017, we've lost actually 3 feet of land. And that's based on the surveying that was done and on the work with the OCMR. So we're putting in the seawall, a walkway, and a handrail. The objective of the project is to preserve, enhance, and sustain the parking lot side of the Isle of Palms Exchange Club, and also to provide safe ingress and egress, so that make sure that we have safety not only in the parking lot but also in the walkway. I have the time frames if anybody's interested in that. I won't go through it in respecting your time, but in terms of what we've done with the project. As related to the financials, as outlined in the documentation that we provided, the total cost is $228,000. We've raised $168,000 to date. 118 of that was from fundraising and donations. 50,000 came from the Exchange Club budget. To date, we have paid, and I have documentation for that if anyone's interested, we've paid $138,000, a little over that, for the seawall construction. Another $35,000 is coming due. And we've paid a 50% deposit on the walkway, so rounded about $13,000. We've also, as documented in the information that I provided, we did take out a loan for $75,000 since we weren't able to raise the money in the timing that was needed to pay for the seawall and the walkway. So we have a $75,000 loan at 4% annually that we've taken out for a period of 2 years. So then now to the most important part probably is why should this apply for ATAX money and why does it qualify? One of the things that I provided in the exhibit is the number of people that we bring to the island through the Exchange Club. So rough estimates was approximately 6,000. Of that, about 20% we estimated would be heads and beds out of town. And where some of that information comes from is some of the events that I've previously mentioned, but the Isle of Palms Connector Run, the oyster roast that we do in March. We also are doing a shag dance at the Citadel Club in January of this year. We've also sponsored several different charitable organizations at the Exchange Club, several veterans groups, the Coast Guard, and several different church groups. We have rentals of about 4,300 that are brought in through the rentals. And then, as several of you may have seen in our parking lot, we have folks that do visitors from both day trippers as well as folks that are overnight that use the parking lot to view the sunsets over Hamlin Creek and over the Ravenel Bridge. So the 20%, we estimated that based on our run data that we get, and we about 20% of our folks actually travel in from greater than 50 miles, and we do that through the zip code information that we have. So in order to grow and continue to sustain these numbers, we need to make sure that we maintain our parking lot and maintain the land that's available, because we utilize that land to bring in these different events and which result in heads and beds, so to speak, as well as people that visit the island on a day day trippers. So that's those are the kind of key points that I wanted to point out as a result of the application and the exhibit. I don't know if Robbie or Pat, anything that you'd like to add that I missed? If you want to come up, Pat.
Good afternoon, thank you. I'd like to point out once again that, to reiterate with Kitty has just said, the number of people who come to our parking lot to enjoy an evening is phenomenal. I've seen our parking lot full of cars, golf carts, and bicycles from one end to the other end on evenings, and it's a regular occurrence. You can come by our anytime in the summertime, late spring and early autumn, and you will see so many people there with in-state plates, out-of-state plates. It just seems to be a draw. And we are going to go a little bit further, and we're going to try to put some benches out once our program's done with the construction and all, so that people can see and sit down and enjoy it and not have to sit in their cars all the time. So basically, that's all I want to bring out. I think it's going to be a wonderful asset to the community, and we hope that you will participate with us. Thank you.
Thank you. I know it's been a long meeting, and I touched the mic. No, I just wanted to thank all of you for listening to the presentation, and we, I think, have presented to you in your documents with the exhibits, hopefully can answer all of your questions before you even have them in what we've provided you. But what I wanted to speak to, I can definitely speak to what Pat said, because I've been there. I actually live at the Exchange Club. It's not my permanent residence and on the tax rolls, but that's where I live. And I will open up the gate to the dock, and I want everyone, community, tourists from 50 miles away and really further, to be able to enjoy what the Exchange members have been able to provide this community. And it's just such an honor to be the president of the Exchange under those terms. Why I'm here speaking right now is our rentals are going to be increasing massively, and they are increasing massively. And that's due to a wonderful new director. I work with her. In fact, I was texting her pictures that she can promote. Actually, if anybody wants to rent the club Friday and Saturday after Thanksgiving, there's going to be a once, I guess, in a lifetime discount for that, because she wants it rented. But we definitely will be bringing in more tourists and people who can enjoy the club and this particular enhancement that we're doing. And they're very dependent on that parking lot. So we needed to save it. So thank you.
Okay,
So any other questions?
Any questions for anybody on the
Oh,
committee?
you said you had the documentation you already spent, and you've got those here, don't you?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Barb?
I have spent time in the parking lot looking at taking photos of the sunset for sure, and I brought tourists. Question, who literally owns the Exchange Club building in that land?
The IOPCC. So-
Okay, it's not owned by the National
No,
Exchange
no,
Club,
it
it's
was,
owned.
the beach company, provided it to the IOPCC, dependent upon it being used for the community. And it
IOPCC,
is the Isle of Palms, Community Corporation,
Oh, okay.
which is the foundation arm of
Okay.
the Exchange Club. And so we lease it to the Exchange Club for $100 a year.
okay, since I've got the floor, same thing that happened with the VFW, they're improving they wanted basically to have us pay for things that they've already done. And we went back to them and said, well, we really need something specific that, again, impacts tourism. I mean, I know the Exchange Club, tourists, it touches tourism. I don't think you could argue it really impacts it in a great, it doesn't put heads in beds in a great way. And even if it did, I can see funding your run, things that bring all these people to the island, but just funding upkeep of your land, I don't think that falls under ATAX. That's my concern. Now, the benches, when that little flicker of light, putting benches up that tourists could actually sit at to look at this sunset, that is sort of like the VFW elevator that's going to allow people to get in the building to enjoy the beach. Just saying.
Desiree, can you read the statute provision that is associated with parking lots within the state law on
Sure.
ATAX funds? I think that would be helpful for folks on the committee.
Sure.
It's at 6-4-10.
Yes, I have it right here,
4B.
sir.
All right.
Section 64-10, Section 4, B, under tourism-related expenditures, subsection 3, construction, maintenance, and operation of facilities for civic and cultural activities, including construction and maintenance of access and other nearby roads and utilities for the facilities.
Does it go any further?
No, sir.
Nothing about parking lots?
Yes, I'm sorry, that's a different section, subsection 5, public facilities such as restrooms, dressing rooms, parks, and parking lots.
Okay. So it would be fair to say that
There's another section, I don't mean to interrupt, section 7, control and repair of waterfront erosion, including beach renourishment.
okay. So it would be fair to say that at least you could have the interpretation that this would comply with the law.
I would say it's the same justification as you all use for the VFW award.
Right, okay. Any other questions or discussion with the group?
Well, I know a thing or two about parking lots here in the past year, so for the overreaching goal, I think for the ATAX committee with the tour, to promote tourism, and I keep hammering this, is the feeling that you get as you leave. And parking is certainly, and a parking lot is certainly one of them, where it's your first touch to the tourists as they drive in, right? Like they're coming over the connector. We want them to see something nice. When you're driving somewhere on Isle of Palms and you're pulling in to somewhere on Isle of Palms, that's going to evoke a memory, such as going to the Exchange Club to watch the sunset. Side note, my friend has a dock right next door, so I see the tourists coming in. I think it's huge to have something nice to roll into without potholes, nice car stops, benches. I think that's nice.
That is nice, but I'm pretty sure there's somewhere in that talks about we can't pay for, that's not what ATAX money pays for, like, bushes and landscaping, all of that.
I guess mine is more of a indirect,
I know,
intangible.
and I totally agree, but I want to say that there's, and I'll have to look it up, but that's not what ATAX is used for, is for like landscaping and egress on and off highways and, coming onto the island. You can't just spend the money on that.
I think the application is for the
I'm pointing to
seawall.
that fact.
Seawall and
Yeah.
Seawall a little bit different.
Yeah, so the application is for the seawall and the walkway. And the seawall will serve to preserve the land.
Okay.
How does this provide income for the Isle of Palms? I mean, I'm new, so I'm going to ask
yes.
dumb questions.
Yeah,
So
so-
how does this provide income? And if people rent your facility for parties or banquets, is there a requirement, as in other places, not here, but in other places I know of, require you to use a restaurant or catering facility on the island? Do you have, I'm only looking at it as promoting tourism and with income for the island,
So-
indirectly or directly.
Right, so, most of the events are catered. It is not a specific requirement that it has to be for a caterer on Isle of Palms because there are a limited number of caterers. We do utilize an Isle of Palms caterer for all of our internal events. So we do, the money goes back to, based on that. For the connector run, that's where I indicated that we have about 20% that do clearly come from out of town. And, I can't specifically say that they're staying at Isle of Palms hotels, but they do have to leverage either hotels or rental properties in the area. We do, the folks that do support it through the volunteerism, we do book rooms at one of the hotels on Front Beach. And weddings, but like yeah.
And you collect sales tax on rentals, right?
No, we don't.
Oh, no taxes are collected.
None are needed.
Oh, interesting. So currently, right now, you're allowing public people to park in your parking space, and I think that's really great, and go onto your property. Is there any way that we could stipulate that must be maintained going forward in the future?
Well, I think that's part of the application that we did indicate that we would continue to maintain it in the future.
Perfect.
maintain access.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the only exclusion for that would be is if there's an event and the parking lot's full.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Comment. It checks off all the boxes. It's well documented under South Carolina Code Section 6-410, subsection B, 3 little I, 5, 7, and Revenue Ruling 9822. It clearly qualifies. It also keeps parking that we're challenged here, keeps parking out of the neighborhoods where they have a convenient place to park other than going in the neighborhoods. It's leveraged. They've got the receipts. It complies with Turk guidelines as they've interpreted since 2003. They've already paid $138,000, so it meets the qualifications or the what Turk has said as far as this being in reimbursement in arrears rather than the trouble we get where we may pay in upfront and then hope that they spend it correctly. Plus, they have all the documentation to support it. Thank you. Oh, one other thing, it also supports, it has an additional qualification that you've checked off the box for cultural events, that you have plenty of, I see you nodding. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Do I have a motion on the floor?
I so move.
What's the motion?
I move to accept the application. I move to accept the application.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Nicole, can you do a roll call?
Sure. Ms. Clark?
Nay.
Ms. Bergwerf?
Nay.
Mr. Akers?
Aye.
Mr. Truslow?
Did she say me? I couldn't hear.
Mr. Truslow? Ms. Kovalich?
Aye.
Ms. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Burns?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Okay, the next item is approval of the budget, the over-budget expenditures, which Debbie alluded to in her presentation. I'll make the motion that we approve the July 4th fireworks over by $2,009, the Front Beach Holiday Tree over by $812, and the Police Department low-speed vehicle over by $36. I make a motion to approve those overages.
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
May I ask a question to, is there a cap or can there be a cap on the fireworks? And I'm not sure how you do this, where you send out a RIP, or how, because I see them increasing, and I was wondering whether you have a cap on it, and that's all you will spend. I mean, that's just a question.
So just like with any city expense,
Yes.
there is usually an RFP process if it's over a certain amount of money. There are not a whole lot of
Right.
fireworks shooters around. So we budget a certain amount of funds to cover the expenditure, but when we engage a shooter, that goes before city council and they would approve.
All
Again, this was significantly higher than we saw in 2019, but a lot of things are significantly higher now.
Thank you.
Any other?
Have you thoroughly investigated this, and are you recommending that we approve this?
I do.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against? None. Okay, next item is date of next meeting. I would suggest our next meeting be in January.
Okay.
Unless somebody thinks we have a compelling reason to meet again in December.
Just real quick, aren't we with the grant application supposed to be doing something with that? They start in December, according,
December
so we
1st.
don't have to do anything with that.
No, she has on this list that they will advertise or request for applications on December 1st. The ATAX application workshop for interested applicants will be January 10th, and the application deadline is January 31st.
Yeah,
That's
the way I interpreted, we left it, is that we're going to feedback to Desiree our thoughts on the new application. She'll communicate with us on changes, if any, and then that will go in place for a call for grant applications on the 1st of December. And then the timetable will then proceed. So I was going to just suggest that we meet in January, and if you want to put a date on the calendar, I'm certainly ready to do that. I was going to suggest Tuesday, the 17th. I'm just picking a date out of the hat here, but.
Is that right after the,
I'm sorry?
is that right after the MLK Monday?
Yes. Is that bad?
That's that right after that, yes.
Pardon?
It's right after the long weekend.
Okay, so that's bad.
I'd pick a different one.
How about Thursday, the 19th? 19th of January.
I have a conflict at 11 o'clock. Sorry, but that I can't change.
Okay. I'd like to have our meetings before the city council meeting of that month. So, okay, how about the Wednesday, the 18th? Pardon?
Sounds good.
Okay, it's just being penciled in, we'll confirm it all, but let's plan on Wednesday, the 18th at 11 o'clock. Okay, I make a motion for adjournment. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.